that I look at things in comparison to what I can prove, what the laws state, and that sort of thing. That's what I have to do, okay? And the key term on this particular application is the word residence, okay? If you could tell me what that means, I'd give you $1 million, because the courts have interpreted it 1,000 different ways. It could be, it doesn't have to be where you live. It doesn't have to be where you get water. It doesn't have to be anything. It can be even based upon what we call intent, where I'm intending my residence to be, if I have some connection there. We've had youthful parents.
Yeah, so when you go dancing, you don't have to get carded.
I'm sure one day that'll change. And no, I'm 31, so I'm a little bit older than I look. Most people say 16, so
that'll be a blessing as you get older.
Right, we'll see how long it lasts. My dad tells me one day I'm going to wake up and appear like I'm 40. So I tell him, well, maybe I'll be 50 when that happens.
That's
so it really
right.
won't matter.
You've got one on everyone. This is Miss Suzanne Rogers and Jack Curtis and Judy Hannes and Nancy Loring.
Yeah.
And we're just citizens trying to do a good job, and we're just concerned because you called Monday and said you didn't see any reason why Mr. Spate should not be accountable for how he filled out his application. And I just wanted to lay out what we had, and then you can tell us about yours, because you have a copy, I'm sure, of the sworn statement stating he'd been there 6 months.
Sure.
And here's a copy of the agent's report, and it states that the house was not listed. Let me see where my notes are. It was not listed until June the 2nd, available June the 25th, and he moved in June the 27th. So if I go by November the 22nd, that's 4 months and 25 days. But he said he was there 6 months, and I think that's the principle that we're looking at is, should he not have known that he was putting the incorrect information on there? As you mentioned, someone named Jessica was prosecuted,
right,
for basically maybe the same application thing. I don't remember. But and then on this one, he had written down that he was at 10 Tanglebrush way back in May for a voter's registration, but it wasn't available till June. He didn't move in until June the 27th. This one, the water was turned on June the 27th also. So
you're saying he lived there a month and a half without any water?
With no water.
No water and sewer.
Yeah, that's not likely.
So
no.
Not in this
my
country right now.
concern is, should he not be held accountable for his information that he puts out? Because it kind of throws the citizens, as a loop to know what to expect, from someone running for political office.
I think another big concern is if one person is allowed to do this, would we let everybody else do the same thing?
Right, equal justice for equal.
Let me, and I know we might not always be on the same page. Let me explain a few things to you. First and foremost, I agree 100% with your issues. Okay, we want to get into politics or whatnot. I am all for accountability, public service,
honesty,
integrity. Amongst all public officials, period, whether they're in our county or work for, so I get it. I'm with you 100% on that. However, my job requires that I look at things in comparison to what I can prove, what the laws state, and that sort of thing. That's what I have to do, okay? And the key term on this particular application is the word residence, okay? If you could tell me what that means, I'd give you $1 million, because the courts have interpreted it 1,000 different ways. It could be, it doesn't have to be where you live. It doesn't have to be where you get water. It doesn't have to be anything. It can be even based upon what we call intent, where I'm intending my residence to be, if I have some connection there. We've had case law that come down to hold that to be true. It's ridiculous.
But is that not the same thing that you did to Jessica? Because she did not live there 2 years, so how did y'all determine that was not her residency? Because he's got homestead exemptions in Alden Bridge, so you pay your homestead and get all of your...
Right, and again, that's not indicative of what someone's residence is. It should
So
be.
then the law needs to be changed to
Absolutely.
define what residence is.
Absolutely.
So is anybody going to work on that?
Well, we have, through the Jessica Siegel thing, amongst others, the Attorney General's office handles a lot of this type of voter issue stuff.
yeah, I called them.
Yeah, they're really the primary. They have a whole division set out to voter fraud and different things. And this issue has come up not only in our county, but probably majority of counties throughout the state. I know they had an issue in Galveston County where a judge was, similar deal. He actually ran. He won. Was elected to office, and then 6 months in, it was determined. They found that he had another house where he was actually living most of his time, but he claimed that he was living at a business or something within the jurisdiction. It got appealed. They tried to remove him from office. Went all the way through the court system, and they said no. That's where his residence was. He gets to stay.
Well, and
it's
I
just
think,
really weird.
And I think that's what I was concerned about too, and a lot of us residents were, because he lives in Precinct 2, and he only rented this for a year, so he can go back there and live and still sit on the Commissioner's Court. So
Oh,
I
it's-
told the little man at the newspaper, which he wouldn't print anything in the newspaper, that I said, well, we'll have to beat him at the ballot box then.
Sure.
But I still think, and deep down in my heart, that if you're going to prosecute Jessica and go pick her up and put her in jail, why did we not follow through on something?
Because
Even if he
it's
has to
too-
pay a fine or something.
But I can't do that. I can't just. It's like comparing apples and oranges. The amount
It was
of.
not the same?
No, it's not the same. It's
I
not
thought
the
she
same at
claimed
all.
residency for 2 years.
Right, she did. She
And what
claimed
did
that
y'all prosecute her on?
Okay, Nancy, look, we've talked. We've gone back and forth on the phone. Either you're going to let me explain, or the meeting's over. Okay, I want to try to explain
excuse me.
the difference, but you don't give me any opportunity
Well,
to talk.
at me as a senior citizen, think, if I don't say that right away, then I'll forget it. So I apologize.
I want y'all to have your forum, and I want everyone to talk, but I need to be able to explain the differences, okay? You're
Between
not an attorney, okay?
Well,
What
And-
exactly
and-
is the difference then between
Well,
her and him?
The biggest difference is, would it have mattered, okay? Would it have mattered had he been right or wrong, okay? And again, we're dealing with the fuzzy issue of residence, okay? She was down in Harris County, lived in Harris County down in Houston, okay, and claimed that she lived up here, all right? And I don't have it in front of me. I brought his timeline. But if she lied in order to be, in order to qualify to run, she had to lie.
She
And
said
he
she lived here,
didn't.
or she had a residence here.
She said she had a residence here. Okay.
Then, again, you don't have to
That's
live
all.
with it.
I understand.
Yeah.
I understand. Okay, but that's what she claimed. If she wouldn't have lied on her application, and it's by like 6 months difference at least on what she put down, she would not have been eligible to run. Okay? One thing is different about this application is that even if he had put 4 months, or 3 months for that matter, actually 2 months, he could have put 2 months in district or precinct, he would have still been eligible to run for office.
He would?
Yes. Okay? And I have confirmed this more ways than I know how, but basically it breaks down like this. Okay? May 10th, 2011, he signs his lease application, and I have that here. I don't know if y'all have that. This is his lease, or this is his actual lease. But he signs a lease application, okay, for the 10 Tanglewood. All right? May 11th is when he actually signs the lease, okay? Which is to start, he signs the lease May 11th, and the commencement date is June 1st, 2011. Okay? Through June 1st, 2011. This is not accurate information. Okay? This is something that you're pulling off of HAR. I mean, it's not accurate.
well, they've typed it in. Why wouldn't it be accurate?
Maybe at one point when they typed it in it was, but it was not updated to reflect the actual lease.
Well, when I went to the villager, the little man there said that he was waiting on the contract to come, and it came later. So
I don't
from
know.
Neil to Blair and now, okay.
See, that's the thing. I don't operate on conspiracy theories. Okay, I'm looking at black and white
Facts.
what I can prove in a courtroom, because courtroom doesn't revolve around conspiracy theories. So I can't put you on the stand and say, Nancy, why don't you tell us about what you think happened? I can't do that. That's not how our system works.
But we're not even thinking whenever, and we're not, and the residency thing you've brought up, but I think it's more important that he has signed it and had it notarized that he'd been there 6 months. I think that's being dishonest.
He said he had the residence for 6 months, not that he lived there. It's what you're, I think
Correct.
what this gentleman
I've
said.
But how
told her that
could he?
1,000
It wasn't even
times.
available till June the 2nd, even though he put May the 11th on here.
He still had at least.
Right. He had a lease agreement, and under the law, that would probably get him to where he needs to be for residency. We're not talking about where the person goes to bed each night. It's terrible. I'm
That
telling
law
you.
does need to be
It's
changed.
ridiculous. It causes us
That's
more headache
fraud.
than
It's fraud. It's
it is
perjury.
fraud, because
And he
nothing
perjured his
prevents
application.
someone from doing exactly what he did, which was to come in, rent a house, or even attempt to rent a house, and run for office in that. It's ridiculous.
And you shouldn't be having to deal with this.
No,
You
You
trust
should
me.
have the law changed.
Trust me. I mean,
It's wasting his time and the county's money.
if I could go and draft the law myself, I would. I mean, and we have our voice has been heard. Like I said, other counties this round have struggled with this problem, and eventually I do foresee it changing.
What can we do when we leave here to start
You
the
can start
process of
calling.
change?
You can call your legislatures, your
Brady.
Kevin Brady. You can call Tommy Williams. You can call. I mean, your legislatures need to be. But let me tell you though, they're not in jumping up and down to
No.
change this law. Okay, you have to understand, because a lot of the people that you would be thinking would change it, the votes that you need,
They should use it.
they are running for office based upon doing the same thing. It's ridiculous. I mean, so that's why it hasn't happened as quickly as it should have many, many years ago. This has been a problem for a long time.
Do you see it ever getting corrected?
Well, you
I
know,
mean,
again, I hope, I mean, with people, you know, and I don't want to get my personal preference, but with people like the Tea Party system, where you have some people in that are not career politicians that want to do the right thing, that's what it's going to take. I mean, but anyone who has benefited from this fuzziness is not going to jump up and down to change it. And that's unfortunate, and it's been like that for...
I was told that by our attorney one time, and he told me, he said, something was said about the law, and he said, well, who makes the law? He said, a lot of times these lawmakers will make the law and put little things like this in it so that
For their own
they are
benefit.
allowed to circumvent
Sure.
it.
yeah.
Because
And he
they...
said it don't really pertain to them.
It's easy, because maybe like in his precinct where he lived, precinct 2, the commissioner is Doyle, I think. I mean, he saw the opening of Ed Chance leaving. Okay, well, he wants to run for office and be a commissioner. Well, what's the only alternative he can do? Well, he just has to go in and rent a place, or make some attempts to rent, and guess what? He gets to be on the ballot. Okay, it's ridiculous. Okay,
It's
And
not
I'm in total-
justice that is not evenly spread
Sure.
out.
No, it's not. I mean, I'm in total agreement with you. But where we disagree, I think, is what you want me to do and what I can legally do. And I cannot...
Oh, I don't think. You know, you're
Yeah, I
right.
can't
I
go-
guess I wanted some accountability.
Trust
you know,
me.
and
Trust me. I'm with you 100%. And I believe that, you know, there's another power that administers justice, and that's what occurred in this campaign. But even then, even saying that, you know, I have to look at it from, we have different burdens. You've probably heard burden of proof and beyond a reasonable doubt and whatnot. For me to even take forward a allegation, I have to have some basis to where I have a good shot at winning. I mean, is what it comes down to. And I can't run somebody through the mud just because I think he was trying to circumvent the system, which he probably was. I still have to be able to prove that. And that's,
so the paper trail
Isn't it
doesn't
slander?
circumvent it, right? The paper trail doesn't prove anything.
I just don't think it does. I don't think it gets us there. I mean, like, you know, because, and again, because even if he had put down the correct amount, he still would have been eligible to run for office. There's
Really?
nothing that would prevent him because of the fuzzy, crazy things that happened this term. He had to have filed, or he had to have been living, here, I mean,
Well, even if he moved in November the 22nd, December, January, February, March, April, that's 5 months still.
Well,
You know,
what would have been his intent to
I don't know.
falsify
I mean, I don't think that. I think that he thought probably that it was asking if at the time he would have had to live there for 6 months, because that is the requirement. That's the minimum. And so he thought that, well, I'll put 6 months down. I don't know.
So he didn't know the law, basically.
Well, I'm not going to say that. He may have been flat out trying
his
to...
intent was to lie and falsify.
Right.
He could have put down his office, though, as his other residence.
Yes, that's another issue we
And that would have
face.
been legal. He's been there for how many years?
Well, but how could that be a residence if you don't have a bed there and you can't sleep
Nothing
there?
says you have to
That's
have a bed
the
there.
same.
Oh.
You don't have to have a bed there.
When I was growing up, I
So
knew
it's
people
not
living
very
in the track.
even.
It's not black and white.
Not
Let's,
black
you
and
know.
white. So the law's not applied evenly.
Yeah, so he has to have lived in the county 6 months prior to March 9th of 2012. That's the date that changed with all the we had that whole issue of redistricting. All the dates got pushed back.
Well, I called on that.
And he did.
Yeah, I called
did.
I called the elections department. I called Mr. Wilkerson, and they said, well,
They're all wrong.
they are.
Okay.
Oh, really?
And I've already had that problem. I already had that discussion with Wally. I've talked to him about it when we were facing the Jessica Siegel thing. He was relying on the Secretary of State's website, which was also wrong and had to be corrected. I mean, it got
So then you went back to the federal government for the correction instead of the state?
no, the state. Well, the federal district court is what issued the timeline. Okay, the state on the front end misinterpreted their dates, and that's what got everything incorrect on the website.
So then the state was subservient to the federal government
Correct.
rather than the state having their own entity for their...
No, absolutely. The federal government directed when the elections would take place, and yeah, I mean it's
I mean, that's not the separation of state and federal government.
yeah. Like if you look at here, this is the correct version on their website. For a county commissioner, you have to live in the precinct 6 months. Okay, and it's 6 months before March 9th of 2012. Okay, if you're running for the Republican Party nomination, which he was. So that's the correct date, March 9th of 2012.
So the federal government changed it for the state then, because when I talked to the
Correct.
Attorney General's office, they said, you know, it's up
Well, I don't
to
know
the
when you talked
Republican
to
chair. Oh, it's in here.
because
talked to the...
it
he
might have
said-
been before the district court issued their
What was the date on that one?
their dates.
Because when I called, they said, you know, it's up to your county chair, and then Mr. Wilkerson said it stays the same.
Yeah, well, I don't know when you talked to him, but and that may have been what he was relying on at the time. It changed so many times this year, but I stand. It has been decided in the courts. I have no doubt that this is the date. So that's the problem here, is that he could have put 1 month or 2 months actually. Let's see. If you say June 1st is the date, then he could have put 4 months here, and he could have put less than that, and he still would have been eligible to run for office. So it didn't really matter what he put there.
Wow.
Now,
And see, as a notary, I always want people to be honest when I'm notarizing their papers, and I just can't understand people not having the integrity to do
well,
that.
again, that's the one
and it's been
issue.
on my heart, so...
I know. I mean, I understand. I understand your frustration, but I want you to understand that
that
the
nothing's
Texas
been
Rangers
done.
worked this up.
Wendy.
When she did a good job. She tracked down what she could, and she turned over her report to us, and we sat down and talked about it. I mean, and we don't have the substantial evidence that we needed to conduct a criminal investigation or to indict him or anything like that.
So if it's not criminal, is it... there's no other thing to go underneath, right? I mean, no other indictment to go
The
underneath
ethics-
except the ethics.
The TEC, Texas Ethics Commission.
But he didn't get in office, so that's a blessing. Because, I mean,
Correct.
if you start out this way, then you think, what is he going to do with our tax dollars down here, and who's going to influence him, and how is it going to be handled?
I didn't
And
vote
Is
for
he
him.
gonna lie the whole way?
I lived
Yeah,
in precinct
that's right.
3.
Oh, do you?
I didn't vote for the guy.
Okay.
So I'm with you there. I haven't heard much. I mean, we're talking personally now, but I hadn't never heard much good about him in the first. I mean, so when I got this, I pursued it the best I can. I promise you that. We don't.
Well, we understand because we think really on the Jessica thing, eventually it'll go away too because of the residency
Well,
thing.
she that's a different story because she literally had zero ties to Montgomery County and the only way she could have ran in Montgomery County is if she lied about her residency. I know it sounds the same, but it is a total different can of worms. It really is.
Well, it sounds the same because Kenny. I used to work with Kenny in the title agency and with the insurance with him and everything, and I have nothing against him. He's a nice,
Right.
likable guy, but you gotta. You know, I grew up in, like I said, in the old school, and so I'm thinking, golly, this is not right what he did, and so. But I appreciate your time, Tyler.
Well, I can tell you
I can assume
that this issue, unfortunately, and you can start watching it now because you'll see it now that you
More people.
notice it. People take advantage of it, and frankly, it needs to change. And I'm with you 100%. You know, we take everything case by case basis. And
Is this my copy here?
sure, I was going to give you one of those if you wanted it.
Sure.
Um,
Because
So
whenever
all we can do is just try to keep an
keep
eye on
it
people.
and vote people.
Well,
It won't do any
vote
good. We
people
got to
in that
start
are
calling
honest.
You know,
the
Brett-
representatives.
Brett, yeah, I mean that's number
This
one.
is the
law
key.
needs to change. The second thing is
So long.
we will, even though it's really not an easy thing to do, we will continue to monitor these types of complaints.
Well,
If
and
we
when they
get-
come up, yeah.
I mean, Brett Ligon has. Trust me, we have prosecuted more public officials and whatnot in his 4 years of office. We're not scared to do that, but at the same time, we take an oath that we will do that only in cases where we feel confident that a crime has taken place that we can prove. And that's the standard we have to go by. If I could just go at him and have him pay a fine or whatnot, I would. But that's
Well,
just not.
and if you see him sometimes, because I don't work with him around by him anymore, but just say, Kenny, the next time, be honest on your, pay attention to what
Sure.
you're signing,
Sure.
But you can't say that either.
He probably won't.
Again, that's slanderous.
No, just to be honest on, no, not really.
That's a fine line.
No,
No, just
it's
to be honest, if you,
it's frustrating.
yeah,
And it's-
because
creates
it gives
more
us a
work for
mixed
us.
signals to the, to the residents
I
and to
know.
the
I
taxpayers.
know, and a lot of people, they don't necessarily understand, what all goes on, but it's difficult, and I feel confident that we gave everything a good, thorough review, and based upon the facts and the law, and we came to the conclusion that we did. But
Okay.
I can assure you that that's the only reason that we did that. Is we're not bound by anybody in this office, and
Well,
if
and I
you
was
look at Brett's track record, you'll believe that. I mean,
Well, and I was kind of flabbergasted about the federal government coming in and telling
Sure.
the state,
it's
you know,
crazy.
that this is what, yeah,
we
because
do.
when I called the Attorney General's way,
That's just like the illegal deal I was talking about earlier. As far as illegal immigration, the federal government comes up and says, tells Arizona, you can't do anything
Exactly.
about it.
It's the same thing. Voter ID, no, you
And
can't
it's,
do that. Voter
It's
ID,
state law,
I
but
mean,
we're overriding you.
I know,
It's-
but they
it's-
shouldn't.
It's unbelievable. I mean, it's scary.
Well, I
I'm with
appreciate your time, Tyler. Thank
Yeah,
you.
no problem. I'm glad
It was a
y'all.
good meeting. It was good. It was
I-
informative.
I know it's frustrating, and trust me,
Well,
as a
and we'll just pay
citizen, when I take
attention.
off my hat and leave this office, I go down and I live in the Woodlands.
Hey,
I
we
mean,
just pay attention.
I'm with you. But I also know when I come in here, I have to look at what I can legally do and not do, and that's how we make our decisions. It's frustrating. The citizens, I understand. I understand that. I wish that we need some laws. I mean, that's what it comes down to. I mean, we need some help
Some
there.
definition, yeah.
Some definition.
So these, our representatives then would be the one that would write the law.
Correct. They
So
would need
anyone
to-
else to add to the list
Since
that
Kevin and Tommy.
would have
I mean, those is where you could start. I mean, any of your
the state
representatives.
and federal?
Well, now that Steve Toth's going to be in there,
Yes.
and
That's
so
right.
Kay Bailey Hutchinson.
Yeah. I mean, any of those folks in the area. Brandon Crichton, I know, is pretty active. He's somebody you could reach out to.
Brandon
and
Crichton.
he's pretty good.
Yeah, very good.
Yeah.
We have some good folks that, and it may not even be, like I said, there was, to get a law change, you have to have so many votes from throughout the state, and the problem is now a lot of these folks have got elected, relying on this vagueness
Light.
in the without definition, and so they're not going to be interesting to see. I mean, we definitely need to have the fight though. So
Well, and it would help to keep things clear and quit wasting your time saying, "Oh,
trust
people,
me,
this is
I
There's a lot of laws like this, like the law here a while back. I'm not sure where it stands now as far as carrying a weapon
Right.
when you're traveling
Right.
and crossing county lines.
Yep.
People say,
And-
"Well, are you really traveling?" You know,
Right.
it comes down to interpretation.
Right.
And
It's-
there's
it's
a
probably the same time.
million people to interpretate, right?
Yeah.
How does I guess, people like yourself view if you don't get a license to carry the concealed weapon, but based on the Constitution, you can carry it, right, without the license?
You can carry it in your vehicle, is what the law allows. I mean,
Yeah, not on your person, but in
my
your
personal opinion, if you're talking from that standpoint, I think you should be able to carry. Period. I mean,
Yeah.
without any regulation. But I don't get to make the law. But the law allows you to carry it in your vehicle, to and from your vehicle. It can stay in your vehicle.
But you can't take it
cannot-
outside the vehicle?
You cannot carry it into a store concealed without a concealed handgun license,
Right.
or whatever. That's
So the vehicle is the only
vehicle is the
outside your
exception.
home?
Correct. Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
So far, we can keep them in
Can
our
you
home.
cross the lines with it in your
Right.
vehicle?
Yes. Yes, you can.
Don't go to Canada,
But
though.
there are some states that don't.
California
Don't
and
They
recognize
don't
it.
have what we call reciprocity, and you can find the list of states. I think it's about half and half. Some states you cannot carry them in your vehicle into there.
Really?
I know some
We
people.
carried ours to California.
And as long as you don't get caught.
as long as you don't get
No, I
caught.
mean, at the end of the day, that's what it boils down
But it
to.
was
Mine
in the
from
trunk,
Texas.
so nobody looked.
Yeah.
As long as you don't get
I
caught.
mean, I wouldn't. I mean, I would probably do the same thing. To be honest, I'm not gonna,
Go
leave my
across the
safety and
country.
my family to someone else. I mean, it's just not worth it. If I have to go to jail for it, I guess that's what you do. I mean,
Well, I think it was on the news this morning, too, that this guy hit her. They went over there to exchange things, and he was being ugly and mean to her or something, and she pulled out
Yeah.
her gunshot,
Yeah.
and she
Is
had
that the one? Is that what happened?
She had a concealed weapon
yeah.
permit.
And what's crazy is that those types of stories never get as much play as the ones who,
Illegal,
the,
yeah.
the
Yeah.
gun goes off.
Yeah, right. Like the gun is the problem instead of the person behind the gun, right. Well, thank you, Tyler. We
You bet.
appreciate it, and
Thank you for
we'll keep,
I hope that
we'll keep
helps.
looking and acting, and we'll
y'all-
be involved. You might see us again sometime.
You might, you are doing a great job. And
Take a vacation with these adults.
Take a vacation.
no, that's all right. Hey, Nancy and I have had our disagreements, but we're all right. We're gonna be
That's right.
we're gonna be friends.
It's free
at the end.
speech, America.
That's right. That's what I said.
Thank you.
I'm glad I was able to meet. So
Oh,
I appreciate meeting
Thank you,
y'all.
sir.
Yeah, it was
Thank you
nice.
very
I
much.
appreciate it. I
And
understand.
y'all call up here anytime.
Thank
Seriously,
you.
I mean that.
Okay.
If y'all have questions about our office or what we do or concerns, call up here.
He may say later, I'm sorry I made
Oh,
that
I'm sorry.
statement.
Yeah, because Suzanne and I are good.
No, that's fine. That's part of what we like
Well,
to do.
it's our country, and we want it taken
Absolutely.
care of.
Well, it's time citizens get involved.
It is.
We've been sitting on the sidelines too
And,
long,
and
so.
I've been personally very impressed with what the Tea Party has done. I don't know if y'all are, I'm sure y'all might be members of that, active in that. I mean, it's awesome.
Absolutely.
I mean,
Keep up the good work.
so y'all
Thank
bet.
you.
Y'all have a good day, okay?
All right, thanks.
Ooh, look at all the pretty flowers. Wow. It looks like a flower shop.